Hello everyone, my name is Allison Yates. I'm one of the peer mentors for the Honors College, and more specifically, I'm Dr. Govin's peer mentor. Usually, the peer mentors get the opportunity to hold this lecture in class for some hands-on experience, but thankfully, Dr. Govins has given me the opportunity to hold this lecture online instead. I got free creative range on creating this, and so these are my ideas about leadership that I believe are important to pass on to the students that I've had a pleasure of getting to interact with and getting to know over the course of this semester. Before I start, I just wanted to say that I genuinely hope everyone is doing well and that you guys are diligently preparing for finals and the end of the semester. Please always contact me if you have any questions or need anything in general. Other than that, let us begin. So for today's lecture, we're going to be looking at the Honors College definition of leadership, the key components of leadership in general, and some alternative or non-traditional ways that you can be a leader. So first things first, what is a leader? The Foundation of Honors Learning Leadership explores the complexities of leadership skills as both personal and critical to becoming a thought leader in the collegiate environment and beyond, with an emphasis on cultivating leadership through honors learning experiences. So that is in general how the Honors College views leadership. It's a vital skill to you in an academic and a personal sense, and the best way to refine the skill is through the HLEs. And that is why at the end of this presentation, I'm going to discuss some of those HLEs that are offered to you, and then just some other really great leadership opportunities that are offered to you as a Kennesaw State student in general. So now that you have the definition, we're going to look at what a leader isn't. So first off, a lot of people believe that in order to be a leader, you must be in an executive position or have an executive title, but leadership exists everywhere. Think of some of the places where you're a leader, even when you're not exactly in charge. That could be in church, in a class, a project group, your friend group, or even just among your siblings. The opportunity to lead starts with you and not your circumstances, your job, your title, etc. Another really big stigma that exists about leadership is that you need to have a certain set of attributes in order to be a good leader. But the biggest lesson that I would like from everyone to take away from today's lecture is that leadership has nothing to do with personal attributes. Just because you're an introvert or more of a quiet kid doesn't mean that you cannot be a leader. Don't let people tell you that just because you weren't a born leader doesn't mean that you can never be a leader. And that's because there's many different ways to be a leader, but we're going to get more into that later on. So the best way I think to get people to understand this concept is by watching this video called Leading with Lollipops about a man named Drew that sold lollipops when he was in college. So we're going to watch that together.
I want to start by asking everyone in the audience here a question. How many of you are completely comfortable with calling yourselves a leader? See, I've asked that question all the way across the country, and everywhere I ask it, no matter where, there's always a huge portion of the audience that won't put up their hand. And I've come to realize that we have made leadership into something bigger than us. We made it into something beyond us. We made it about changing the world. And we've taken this title of leader and we treat it as if it's something that one day we're going to deserve. But to give it to ourselves right now means a level of arrogance or cockiness that we're not comfortable with. And I worry sometimes that we spend so much time celebrating amazing things that hardly anybody can do, that we've convinced ourselves that those are the only things we're celebrating. And we start to devalue the things that we can do every day. And we start to take moments where we truly are a leader, and we don't let ourselves take credit for it, and we don't let ourselves feel good about it. And I've been lucky enough over the last 10 years to work with some amazing people who have helped me redefine leadership in a way that I think has made me happier. And with my short time today, I just want to share with you the one story that is probably most responsible for that redefinition. I went to a school in a little school called Mount Allison University in Sackville, New Brunswick. And on my last day there, a girl came up to me and she said, "I remember the first time that I met you." And then she told me a story that happened 4 years earlier. She said, "On my day before I started university, I was in the hotel room with my mom and my dad, and I was so scared and so convinced that I couldn't do this, that I wasn't ready for university, that I just burst into tears. And my mom and my dad were amazing. They were like, 'Look, we know you're scared, but let's just go tomorrow. Let's go to the first day. And if at any point you feel as if you can't do this, that's fine. Just tell us, we will take you home. We love you no matter what.'" And she says, so I went the next day and I was standing in line getting ready for registration, and I looked around and I just knew I couldn't do it. I knew I wasn't ready. I knew I had to quit. And she says, I made that decision, and as soon as I made it, there was this incredible feeling of peace that came over me. And I turned to my mom and my dad to tell them that we needed to go home. And just at that moment, you came out of the student union building wearing the stupidest hat I have ever seen in my life. It was awesome. And you had a big sign promoting Shinorama, which is Students Fighting Cystic Fibrosis, a charity I've worked with for years. And you had a bucket full of lollipops. And you were walking along and you were handing the lollipops out to people in line and talking about Shinorama. And all of a sudden, you got to me and you just stopped and you stared. It was creepy. This girl right here knows exactly what I'm talking about. And then you looked at the guy next to me and you smiled and you reached in your bucket, you pulled out a lollipop and you held it out to him. And you said, you need to give a lollipop to the beautiful woman standing next to you. And she said, I have never seen anyone get more embarrassed faster in my life. He turned beet red and he wouldn't even look at me. He just kind of held the lollipop out like this. And I felt so bad for this dude that I took the lollipop. And as soon as I did, you got this incredibly severe look on your face and you looked at my mom and my dad and you said, look at that. Look at that. First day away from home and already she's taking candy from a stranger. And she said everybody lost it. 20 feet in every direction, everyone started to howl. And I know this is cheesy, and I don't know why I'm telling you this, but in that moment when everyone was laughing, I knew that I shouldn't quit. I knew that I was where I was supposed to be, and I knew that I was home. And I haven't spoken to you once in the 4 years since that day, but I heard that you were leaving. And I had to come up and tell you that you've been an incredibly important person in my life, and I'm going to miss you. Good luck. And she walks away, and I'm flattened. And she gets about 6 feet away, she turns around and smiles and goes, you should probably know this too. I'm still dating that guy 4 years later. A year and a half after I moved to Toronto, I got an invitation to their wedding. Here's the kicker. I don't remember that. I have no recollection of that moment. And I've searched my memory banks because that is funny and I should remember doing it. And I don't remember it. And that was such an eye-opening, transformative moment for me to think that maybe the biggest impact I'd ever had on anyone's life, a moment that had a woman walk up to a stranger 4 years later and say, you've been an incredibly important person in my life, was a moment that I didn't even remember. How many of you guys have a lollipop moment, a moment where someone said something or did something that you feel fundamentally made your life better? All right. How many of you have told that person they did it? See, why not? We celebrate birthdays where all you have to do is not die for 365 days. And yet we let people who have made our lives better walk around without knowing it. And every single one of you has been the catalyst for a lollipop moment. You have made someone's life better by something that you said or that you did. And if you think you haven't, think about all the hands that didn't go back up when I asked that question. You're just one of the people who hasn't been told. But it is so scary to think of ourselves as that powerful. It can be frightening to think that we can matter that much to other people. Because as long as we make leadership something bigger than us, as long as we keep leadership something beyond us, as long as we make it about changing the world, we give ourselves an excuse not to expect it every day from ourselves and from each other. Marianne Williamson said, our greatest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our greatest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light and not our darkness that frightens us. And my call to action today is that we need to get over that. We need to get over our fear of how extraordinarily powerful we can be in each other's lives. We need to get over it so we can move beyond it. And our little brothers and our little sisters, and one day our kids, or our kids right now, can watch us start to value the impact we can have on each other's lives more than money and power and titles and influence. We need to redefine leadership as being about lollipop moments. How many of them we create, how many of them we acknowledge, how many of them we pay forward, and how many of them we say thank you for. Because we've made leadership about changing the world, and there is no world. There's only 6 billion understandings of it. And if you change one person's understanding of it, one person's understanding of what they're capable of, one person's understanding of how much people care about them, one person's understanding of how powerful and agent for change they can be in this world, you've changed the whole thing. And if we can understand leadership like that, I think if we can redefine leadership like that, I think we can change everything. And it's a simple idea, but I don't think it's a small one. And I want to thank you all so much for letting me share it with you today. Having a great day at TED. I'll see you later.
Okay, so that's one of my favorite TED Talks, so I'm really glad that I got to share that with you guys. But I would just like to ask you guys to think about maybe a lollipop moment that you have, or maybe a lollipop moment that you've given somebody else, and just kind of think about how each of us in some way has, to some degree, changed someone else's life. I believe that leadership should be redefined as these lollipop moments instead of moments of finding power or gaining powerful titles. Leadership's been made this really big thing about changing the world, and that makes it so much harder to grasp. Like, we don't deserve that definition or that title of leadership until we do this really big thing. So there's power in the little things, and everyone has a power to be a part of those little things, and I believe that really strongly. So I've spent a little while telling you about what leadership isn't, so I'm going to give you another definition to add to your understanding, and then some general concepts. So, leadership is a process of social influence which maximizes the efforts of others towards the achievement of a goal. Leadership stems from social influence and not authority. There are many styles and paths, and most importantly, leadership requires others. Bill Gates once said, and I quote, "As we look ahead into the next century, leaders will be those who empower others." This is going to circle nicely into my next slide about the first follower theory. So, the first follower theory is going to be one of the aforementioned many styles and paths that you can follow on this pathway to leadership that is really important for the importance of other people being involved, basically. So there's another video that goes along with this concept as well. But basically, there's a guy dancing really wildly by himself at a concert, and then another man decides to do the same thing as him, and before you know it, there are over 100 people that are rushing to do the same thing. The original guy would, of course, be the leader, considering he started the movement, but the second person to join is another kind of leader known as the first follower. The theory goes that you need the first follower in order to start a movement. The first follower adds on to the credibility of the leader and decreases the risk of embarrassment in this case, or just general risk in other cases, so that people feel free to join in. After the movement really starts to get going, it seems weird or at times counterproductive to not join in. For example, you can think about startup companies. There's always the guy with the idea, and there's always the first follower that's a business partner or a tech guy or someone else. And as their company grows and becomes more successful, more people join on and more people become part of their movement. So yeah. The first follower is a type of leader because without them, there is no movement. They would just be a person and an idea. The best kind of first follower will be the kind of person that adds to the movement rather than just being a part of it, but that's what makes them a leader. They are not the champion of the cause, but the cause wouldn't be the same without them or as big without them. So that is why it's super important to include other people within your leadership because of things like the first follower theory. And this is also like a different pathway to becoming a leader. Just having like that not direct effect, but like being able to join and be a part of the movement is leadership in a sense as well. So, for example, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. during the Civil Rights Movement found his first follower, E.D. Nixon. Mr. Nixon was a member of the Montgomery NAACP and was vital to the boycott in general and continuing the movement in Montgomery, following in Dr. King's footsteps. Mr. Nixon was not any less important to the movement than Dr. King just because he was a leader as a first follower rather than in the traditional sense. This concept of the first follower relates back to what I was saying before with the lollipops moment. You can do something minor or major, or even just be someone who joins a movement to be a leader. You don't have to only give yourself credit as a leader for doing something huge. Leadership is available in many different aspects, and we should allow ourselves the credit of calling ourselves leader by doing anything that we see as important and growing movements that are impactful or just doing anything in general that is impactful. So yeah, so that's going to bring us to tribes. So Dr. Govins covered Simon Sinek's Why in his information fluency lecture, so I'm going to touch on Godin's tribes. So Seth Godin suggests two things to turn people into a tribe, and number one, that's going to be shared interests, and two, a way to communicate. I want you to think about some of the tribes you've been a part of. These tribes can be a class, a club, a friend group, but also think about leadership within those tribes. Are you a leader among those groups? Do you think these groups need leaders? Do you think that those groups would be better with you as a leader, or even just having one in general if they don't already have one? I believe that it's important to ask yourself questions like these about the tribes that you're already a part of so that you can look at making them better. Maybe this reflection can show you that you're sitting on a movement waiting to happen, and you either need to be the traditional sensible leader or maybe even the first follower. But yeah, so on the last part of this, I'm going to go over some of the opportunities that you guys have at Kennesaw. So first of all, you have your advanced peer mentor and your peer mentor positions, both opportunities I highly recommend considering that I am a peer mentor. They're both paid positions and they give you really great experience for your resume. There's also an opportunity to be an honors ambassador. For honors ambassadors, you get to work more directly with Dean Bailey and a lot of the other really important people in the Honors College that do such a great job with running it, and even getting to work with some of like the alumni and everything like that. So that's a really great way to make contacts within the Honors College and the college as a whole. Both of those programs also go towards counting as one of your honors learning experiences. Some of the other opportunities include being teachers assistants or research assistants, which are also HLEs if you like do the proper things for those. And then there's an RA, flight crew leader, or a club member / leader in student government, or Phi Eta Sigma, which is the honors fraternity, and I highly recommend joining because you can only join as a freshman, and I always wish that I would have. But yeah, so if you have any questions regarding opportunities or the lecture as a whole, please feel free to contact me at a813@students.kennesaw.edu. Thank you guys so much. Have a great day.